Last time, I told you that you have a financial thermostat, a number your bank account keeps quietly returning to, no matter how much comes in. I promised you part two. Here it is. Because there's something about that thermostat I didn't tell you yet. It doesn't just sit there, passively resisting, waiting for money to cross its line before it pulls the balance back. It's not that lazy. It reaches outward, into the partner you chose, the job offer you said yes to, or talked yourself out of, the price you quoted on your last deal, right before you found a reason to lower it. By the time you feel resistance to money, the thermostat has usually already made the decision for you, hours or months earlier, dressed up as a perfectly reasonable choice you'd defend if anyone asked. That's the part that makes this so hard to catch. A thermostat resisting a windfall feels like anxiety, obvious, physical, easy to notice once you know to look for it. A thermostat picking your partner, your job, or your price feels like nothing at all. It feels like preference, like compatibility, like simple good sense. Nobody walks away from a negotiation thinking, I just protected my old number. They walk away thinking, that felt right. Here's what that actually looks like in the three places it shows up most. First, jobs. Two people get the same offer, same salary range, same room to negotiate. One asks for more, the other hears the number, feels something tighten in their chest, and says it feels fair, not because they ran the numbers and concluded it was fair, but because asking would have meant sitting in that tightness a few seconds longer, and backing down made it disappear immediately. That relief gets filed away as good judgment. It happens again at the next offer, and the one after that, until I just don't like negotiating becomes a permanent personality trait instead of what it actually is. A number protecting itself. Second, partners. Someone meets two people. One is generous with money, plans ahead, talks about it calmly, the kind of person who makes finances feel boring in the best possible way. The other is chaotic with money in exactly the familiar way. Sometimes flush, usually stressed. Money as a recurring emergency that somehow always resolves at the last minute. 9 times out of 10, people don't consciously choose the chaos. They choose the one who feels right. Calm, well-managed abundance, when it doesn't match your number, doesn't feel safe. It feels oddly suspicious, like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Chaos, when it matches, feels like home, even while it's draining you. Third, deals. A freelancer finally lands a client willing to pay triple their usual rate. Somewhere between the first email and the signed contract, they find a reason to discount it, just for this one, to build the relationship, in case it falls through. The client never asked for less. Nobody negotiated them down. They built their own off-ramp back to the familiar number and called it being reasonable, because the alternative, actually charging what was offered, felt, for reasons they couldn't name, like overstepping. None of these people would ever say out loud, I'm choosing this because it matches my number. Every single time, they'd hand you a perfectly logical reason instead. The thermostat doesn't announce itself. It just makes the option that matches your number feel like common sense, and the option that doesn't feel like a risk. Or worse, like it isn't really you. There's a name for this in psychology, and it isn't really about money at all. It's called self-verification theory, from decades of research by social psychologist William Swan. His core finding is unsettling in how simple it is. People don't actually seek out the most flattering feedback about themselves. They seek out feedback that confirms what they already believe about themselves, even when that belief is unflattering. In one well-known line of his studies, people with a low opinion of themselves were given a choice between a partner who evaluated them favorably and one who evaluated them unfavorably, in line with how they already saw themselves. Again and again, a striking number chose the unfavorable evaluator. Accurate and familiar beat generous and kind. Not because people enjoy feeling small, because the nervous system trusts predictability over good news every single time the two are in conflict. Swan didn't stop at one study either. He found the same pattern in marriages, in roommate pairings, in workplaces. People consistently gravitating toward whoever's view of them matched their own and working, often without their own awareness, to push away anyone whose view didn't. Praise that doesn't match your self-view doesn't feel encouraging. It feels wrong, almost irritating, in a way that's hard to explain to the person offering it. Now apply that directly to money. If your number, the one we found in part 1, sits at a certain level, then a partner, a job, or a deal that confirms that number rings true. It feels like home, even when home is uncomfortable. An opportunity that would lift you well past that number doesn't feel like good news either. It lands as static, something that doesn't add up, something that can't possibly be about you. So your mind resolves the static the only way it knows how. It finds the detail that makes the smaller, familiar option the smart one, and the larger, unfamiliar one the risky one. Logic shows up after the decision, not before it. It's hired to defend a verdict that was already reached somewhere lower down. This is also why the old idea that like attracts like is less mystical than it's usually taught, and more mechanical than most people teaching it want to admit. You're not broadcasting some vibration into the void and waiting for the universe to politely match it. You're filtering, in real time, every person and every offer that crosses your path through a number you decided was true about you a long time ago, and selecting for whichever ones agree with it. The world isn't conspiring to keep confirming your number. You are, continuously, in choices small enough that you'd swear, under oath, that they were just preferences. And this is also exactly why willpower can't fix this part, for the same reason it couldn't fix the spending side in part 1. You cannot out-discipline a filter that finishes its work before you're consciously aware a choice was being made. Telling yourself, I will choose better partners, or I will charge more, doesn't touch the filter. It just adds one more thought the filter has to route around. You can only change what the filter is calibrated to recognize as home in the first place. One clarification, because this gets misread easily. None of this means every cautious no is your thermostat talking, or that you should blindly say yes to every offer that comes your way from now on. Some deals genuinely are bad deals. Some partners genuinely are wrong for you, for reasons that have nothing to do with money. The thermostat isn't the only voice in the room. It's just the one that's been tilted towards safe and familiar for so long that it's gotten very good at sounding like the only reasonable voice in the room. The goal isn't to override your judgment, it's to finally hear that there were two voices, not one, so judgment can actually do its job. Recalibrating the filter itself, rather than fighting the choices it keeps making for you, comes down to 3 steps. Step 1. Map your mirrors. Take the 5 people you talk to most often about money, work or relationships, partner, closest friends, whoever's opinion actually carries weight when you're about to make a decision. For each one, ask plainly, without judging them or yourself, where does their relationship with money sit, roughly, next to the number you found in part 1? Most people doing this for the first time find their closest circle clusters suspiciously close to their own thermostat setting. Not bad luck in who you happen to befriend, the same mechanism you just learned about, wearing other people's faces. Some people, doing this honestly, notice something sharper. The one friend whose finances clearly outgrew the group is also, not by accident, the one they see least often these days. That pattern is worth sitting with instead of explaining away. Step 2. Catch the reasonable no. For the next 30 days, watch for the exact moment an opportunity shows up that sits meaningfully above your number. A raise you could ask for, someone who handles money calmly, a client willing to pay more than your usual rate. The instant you feel the pull to talk yourself down to the smaller, safer option, stop before you finish the sentence in your head. Don't override it yet, just name it out loud or on paper. This is the thermostat talking, not my judgment. Then force a 24-hour wait before deciding anything. Almost everyone, given that one day of distance, decides differently than they would have in the heat of the reasonable-sounding no. Step 3. Add one mismatched voice. Deliberately bring one new input into your week, a book, a mentor, a community, even a single podcast, whose normal relationship with money sits clearly above your own number. Not to compare yourself against it, to give your nervous system repeated exposure to a different version of normal, the same way the evidence log from part 1 worked, except this time the evidence comes from outside you instead of from your own bank statements. Pick something specific enough to actually start this week, not find a mentor in the abstract, but one named book ordered tonight, or one named podcast episode queued up for tomorrow's commute. Vague intentions don't recalibrate anything. A concrete, repeated input does. Stay with it longer than feels necessary. Over weeks, what counts as home gradually expands to include whatever you've been around long enough to stop finding suspicious. This won't rewrite a relationship or a career in a weekend. It isn't supposed to. What it does is change what your filter flags as worth keeping the next time a bigger offer actually knocks, instead of letting it slip past disguised as something that just wasn't a fit. If you just realized you've been calling your thermostat good judgment for years, that's exactly the recognition this video was built to land. Write one word in the comments for what that felt like. This closes the two-part arc on the money thermostat, what it is and how far it actually reaches into your choices. If this connected some dots for you, the rest of this channel is built on the same principle: real mechanisms behind money patterns, not affirmations. Subscribe if you want the next one. Until next time.